Nein, das ist völlig unverantwortlich. Karen Rowe snapped, then twisted the German into English like a blade. He says your proposal is reckless. The boardroom shifted. Investors stiffened. Marcus Holt felt the room tilt as doubt spread like smoke, all from one mistranslated sentence. Karen smiled, confident no one would question her. No one, except the quiet janitor in the corner. The one she never noticed. The one who understood every word she was twisting. He stayed still. Silent. But the tension in the room said one thing clearly. When he finally decides to speak, this entire multi-million-dollar meeting will explode, and someone will regret underestimating him. This is Hidden Black Echoes, where the stories of struggles are told, the rise and the voice of those the world tried to silence. If you believe power means nothing without integrity, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the moment truth enters this boardroom, everything is about to change. Nein, das ist völlig unverantwortlich, Karen Rowe repeated loudly in English to Marcus, twisting Dr. Reinhardt's words. He says your proposal is reckless and would ruin the entire company. Every investor stiffened. Marcus froze. That was not what Reinhardt had said. Karen smiled sweetly, confident, invisible as a saboteur, while in the corner Jamal Rivers, the janitor, watched silently, understanding every German word she was deliberately misrepresenting. Marcus tapped his pen nervously. That is not what was discussed. Karen tilted her head, voice saccharine. I'm just translating, Mr. Holt. Dr. Reinhardt says your projections are unrealistic, and he's worried about your leadership decisions. The German investors exchanged glances. Dr. Reinhardt blinked, clearly confused. Nein, das stimmt nicht, he protested. Karen jumped in, louder. He says you're arrogant, dismissive, and not ready for this partnership. Marcus's jaw tightened. He had rehearsed every point for this meeting. He knew the numbers, the risk models, the entire strategy. He hadn't said any of this, but the investors' faces showed doubt, suspicion, offense. The deal was slipping away, one word at a time. From the corner, Jamal gritted his teeth. He had grown up fluent in German but remained unnoticed, underestimated. Every mistranslated phrase hit him like a punch. He wanted to correct her, but one wrong move, and she would expose him. He stayed silent, waiting. Karen leaned back, smirking. They're asking whether your team has the proper expertise to manage such a deal. They say they might reconsider if these concerns aren't addressed immediately. Marcus slammed his palm on the table. This is ridiculous. They didn't say any of that. Karen waved a hand, innocent. I'm simply translating, sir. I wouldn't want to miscommunicate anything. Benedict Kruger tapped his pen. Ava Schultz whispered to Dr. Reinhardt. Confusion turned to frustration. Marcus felt the pressure building. One misstep now, and $10.5 billion could vanish. Karen wasn't just translating. She was weaving a narrative, making Marcus look incompetent, reckless, and arrogant. Every phrase she twisted was calculated, precise. She didn't notice Jamal's eyes following her, silent fury coiling in his chest. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Karen, what exactly did they say about the projections? Karen smiled, hiding the sharp edge in her tone. They're concerned about the risk models. They feel the leadership might need more guidance. Nothing major, just careful consideration. Marcus's forehead creased. That was still inaccurate, but not insulting enough for the investors to walk. He realized she had been selectively choosing words to maximize doubt and tension. The investors leaned forward, murmuring among themselves. Dr. Reinhardt gestured, Eva nodded, Benedict frowned. Marcus felt the deal slipping. He glanced at Jamal again. The janitor was silently observing everything, eyes sharp, face calm. But Marcus assumed he had no influence. Karen continued, twisting Reinhardt's words even further. They also mentioned your approach to cross-border regulations might be careless. A murmur spread. Marcus's knuckles whitened on the table, his lips pressed into a thin line. Security personnel shifted uneasily. He was trapped. The investors believed her translation. Every word of Karen's sabotage had worked so far. Jamal gripped the mop handle. He could feel the tension, the injustice, the absurdity of a janitor knowing the truth while the room's most powerful executives were being deceived. He weighed the moment carefully. One word, one correction, could reverse everything. But the timing had to be perfect. Karen leaned forward, confident, smug, unaware of the storm, silently observing her from the corner. And finally, she said, almost theatrically, they're questioning whether this deal aligns with your vision. They might advise other partners to reconsider as well. Marcus slammed his notebook shut, leaning back, eyes narrowing. The room was quiet, every person holding their breath. The deal, their reputations, hung on the edge. Jamal remained still, waiting. He knew the tide could turn in a single moment. And in that silence, the room unknowingly waited for a janitor to speak, and for the $10.5 billion empire to hang in the balance. The tension in the boardroom thickened like storm clouds. Marcus Holt sat rigid at the head of the table, trying to maintain composure, but every furrowed brow from the German investors stabbed at his confidence. Karen Rowe, perched with her headset, continued her sabotage with surgical precision, turning innocuous words into poison. Dr. Lucas Reinhardt leaned forward. I do not understand. Your proposal sounded excellent, yet I am hearing concerns, he said in German, voice measured but clearly frustrated. Karen's lips curved into a polite, mocking smile as she translated. He says he expected more foresight from you, Mr. Holt. He questions whether your strategy is feasible. The investors whispered among themselves. Eva Schultz's hand hovered over her tablet. Benedict Kruger's pen tapped faster. Marcus's stomach twisted. He had prepared for negotiation challenges, but he had not prepared for this full-scale character assassination via translation. From the corner, Jamal Rivers leaned slightly on his mop, silent. He had been watching every misrepresentation, every false inflection, every sly distortion of Marcus's words. His chest ached with the injustice. Every reckless, every arrogant, every careless that Karen spat out threatened to destroy a decade of work. Yet he remained invisible, a shadow behind the massive conference table. Karen continued, each word a precise scalpel. They say your risk models are incomplete. They think the cross-border compliance is not robust enough. They suggest you reconsider the financial assumptions, carefully. Marcus slammed his notebook shut. That is not even close to what they said, he said, voice taut, restrained, trying to keep control. Karen's expression was angelic. I'm only conveying their concerns accurately, sir. Benedict Kruger stood abruptly. We need clarity. There seems to be a misunderstanding, he said in German, frustration rising. Karen tilted her head, translating deliberately. He wants to ensure you understand that your approach might be disastrous if implemented as is. Marcus's face burned. The investors were now visibly questioning him. What had begun as a confident, controlled meeting was now unraveling. He could sense the $10.5 billion deal slipping like sand through his fingers. Jamal gritted his teeth. He could see the subtle cues. Reinhardt's eyebrows drawn together, Eva Schultz's tight lips, Benedict's restless fingers. They were reacting to words that had never been spoken. And yet, no one knew that the truth was in the hands of the janitor. Marcus inhaled sharply. Karen, what exactly did Dr. Reinhardt say about our projections? Karen's voice remained sweet, deceptively calm. He's concerned that there may be gaps in your calculations, sir. He hopes you can clarify before proceeding. Marcus exhaled slowly. That was partially correct, but it downplayed the investor's confidence in the proposal and removed any sense of positivity. Karen had reduced praise to criticism, hope to doubt. Every mistranslation compounded the tension. From the corner, Jamal's fists clenched around the mop handle. He had stayed silent this long, letting Karen's plan unfold, calculating the perfect moment to act. He could see Marcus's panic rising, the subtle hand tremor, the tight jaw, the forced calm. He could see the deal, his CEO's reputation, and the trust of billion-dollar investors teetering. Karen, sensing victory, leaned closer to Marcus, lowering her voice just enough for the investors to hear her translate. He also said that working with you might not be in our best interest. He's considering whether to withdraw entirely. Gasps, whispered murmurs. The investors glanced at each other, uncertain, offended, confused. Marcus's fists clenched on the table. He wanted to scream. He wanted to confront Karen. But how could he? She was the official translator, and no one else understood German. Jamal took a step forward, just enough to clear the mop bucket but not draw attention. His body was calm, but inside he was calculating the perfect moment. One wrong word from him now could either save the deal or escalate the disaster. Karen smiled at Marcus, smug, confident, thinking she had won. Shall I continue with the next section? They want to discuss compliance, taxation, and the potential risk exposure for European markets. Marcus swallowed. The room was a pressure cooker. Every investor looked increasingly dissatisfied. The deal was teetering on the edge. He realized that he had been outmaneuvered, outplayed, and humiliated, all by someone he trusted implicitly. And Jamal, silent, unnoticed, and underestimated, watched the entire boardroom spiral. He understood the German perfectly. He saw the lies, the distortions, the deliberate sabotage, and he knew, deep in his gut, that the moment to act was coming. The $10.5 billion deal, and Marcus's reputation, depended on it. The room held its collective breath. Karen Rowe's smug smile didn't waver. The investors were confused, frustrated, and beginning to lose patience. Marcus's mind raced. He couldn't call her out, yet, but he also knew one person in that room had the power to stop this. And that person wasn't on the board. It was the janitor. The boardroom hung in a tense, suffocating silence. Marcus Holt's jaw was tight, fingers drumming on the polished table, every muscle coiled. Karen Rowe, smug and confident, continued her translations, twisting every German word into venom. The investors' whispers grew louder. Confusion and doubt had begun to blossom into mistrust. From the corner, Jamal Rivers had watched long enough. The moment had arrived. He stepped forward, mop bucket trailing silently behind him. The room barely noticed at first. The janitor in his worn hoodie, dusty shoes, and mop seemed insignificant, invisible, harmless. But Marcus's eyes flicked to him, a spark of curiosity, and perhaps hope. Dr. Reinhardt was mid-sentence in German when Jamal interrupted softly but firmly. "Excuse me, but that's not what you're saying." Karen froze, a faint color draining from her face. Marcus's head snapped toward Jamal. The investors looked stunned. The janitor had just spoken, in perfect German. What? Eva Schultz asked, her voice sharp. Jamal cleared his throat. I grew up in Berlin. I understand German. What you've been told, through translation, is inaccurate. He spoke slowly, deliberately, making sure every word landed. Dr. Reinhardt did not call the proposal reckless. He praised the projections and said the risks are manageable. He only suggested a careful review, which is standard procedure. If this moment has you leaning in, tap like and hit subscribe. For more stories where the overlooked find their voice. And everything changes the second truth finally speaks. The room went utterly silent. Karen's hands shook. Her headset slipped slightly, betraying her panic. Dr. Reinhardt blinked, mouth slightly open. Spricht Deutsch? Benedict Krüger asked, incredulous. Yes, Jamal replied, calm but firm. I've understood every word. Everything Karen has been saying to Mr. Holt and to you investors is incorrect, and some of it was intentionally misleading. Marcus rose slowly, walking toward Jamal. The confidence in his stride was deliberate, controlled. Jamal, is this true? He asked in German, testing him without revealing his own knowledge. Jamal nodded. Yes, sir. Every word I heard, I translated in my head correctly. The investor's words are supportive, professional, and encouraging. Karen's translations were wrong. Gasps echoed around the room. Security moved subtly, recognizing that Karen's sabotage had been exposed. Karen's eyes widened. She opened her mouth, tried to speak, but the investors now ignored her entirely. Dr. Reinhardt's voice was measured, precise. Ja, genau. That is correct. He turned to Marcus. We are impressed with your proposal. It is strong, well-prepared, and achievable. We had no intention of doubting your competence. Eva Schultz added, relief flooding her tone. It was disturbing to hear what we were told before. Marcus's lips curved into a controlled, satisfied smile. He turned to Karen. You deliberately misrepresented our investors' words in an attempt to sabotage a $10.5 billion deal. Security, escort her out. Karen stammered. Marcus, please, You're done here, Marcus said quietly, coldly. Her protests died under the weight of his calm authority. Security took her away, the room holding its collective breath. Jamal's shoulders relaxed slightly. The tension, hours in the making, finally began to release. The investor's eyes were on him now, astonishment mixed with respect. Marcus clapped once, sharp, decisive, drawing attention back to him. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice steady, the proposal is intact. The review will proceed professionally, as it should have all along. Thanks to a very important observation from someone who, until now, was overlooked. He gestured toward Jamal. Jamal looked down, shuffling slightly, embarrassed by the attention. Marcus's smile softened, recognizing the courage it took for a janitor to speak up in the most high-stakes moment of his career. You just saved a $10 billion deal, Marcus said quietly, and frankly, you saved this company's reputation. Dr. Reinhardt nodded. It is rare to see such integrity and skill from someone not officially part of the team. Your awareness, honesty, and courage have turned this situation around. Marcus placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. You may be a janitor by title, Jamal, but today you are a hero to this company and to every one of us in this room. Jamal's lips parted slightly, almost in disbelief. He hadn't expected recognition, only that the truth be heard. But Marcus Holt's acknowledgement, the investor's approval, and the silencing of Karen's sabotage gave him a quiet, profound satisfaction. The boardroom had shifted completely. Karen's arrogance was gone. the investors' confidence restored, Marcus's calm authority re-established, and the overlooked janitor, Jamal Rivers, stood at the center of it all, the unlikeliest hero in the most improbable of victories. Marcus turned fully to the investors. "Shall we continue?" Dr. Reinhardt smiled, a rare, genuine expression. "Yes. Let us proceed. Now, with clarity and trust." Jamal stepped back to his mop, unnoticed again by most, but fully aware. He had changed the outcome of history today. The boardroom had finally settled. The tension that had gripped the investors, Marcus Holt, and even the staff had dissipated, leaving a heavy sense of relief in its wake. Jamal Rivers, the janitor who had been invisible for years, now stood quietly by his mop bucket, his back straight, eyes alert but modest. He had spoken the truth, halted a sabotage, and restored a $10.5 billion deal. But he remained understated, almost shy under the sudden attention. Marcus walked toward him, every step measured, his expression one of deep respect. "Jamal," he said, voice calm but commanding, "you just did what many executives in this room could not. You saw the truth and you acted. That takes courage, intelligence, and integrity." The investors murmured in agreement, nodding. Dr. Reinhardt's piercing eyes softened, his voice steady but impressed. "It is rare to witness someone so observant, honest, and capable outside the ranks of management. Your intervention has ensured trust, transparency, and professionalism today." Jamal shook his head, almost apologetically. "I just wanted the truth to be heard. I didn't want anyone to be misled or lose trust in the process." Marcus smiled. "And yet, by doing so, you have changed everything. Not just for this deal, but for the people who underestimated you, for this company, for everyone in this room." Eva Schultz, still recovering from the tension of the sabotaged translations, stepped forward. "It's remarkable," she said. "You didn't have a title, a position, or authority, but you made a difference. That takes skill and guts, and honesty." Benedict Kruger nodded emphatically. "Most of us would have remained silent, afraid of overstepping boundaries. You—" he gestured toward Jamal. "Acted when it mattered most." Marcus turned to the staffers and security personnel who had witnessed Karen's removal. "I want this to be remembered," he said. "Actions like Jamal's cannot go unnoticed. This is the moment we recognize initiative, bravery, and moral courage over mere hierarchy." Jamal's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected accolades, only that the truth finally be acknowledged. Marcus continued. "Effective immediately, I want you to consider how we value and utilize talent in this organization. A janitor today might be a consultant, analyst, or even team leader tomorrow if given the chance. Talent and courage are not measured by title, clothing, or background." The room absorbed the words in stunned silence. Jamal's co-workers, few who were present, smiled in quiet pride. For years he had gone unnoticed, overlooked, ignored. Today his courage had elevated him above the assumptions of everyone in the room. Dr. Reinhardt addressed Marcus, nodding. "This company has shown that integrity is rewarded, that action matters more than formality. Today's resolution restores confidence, not just in the deal, but in leadership that acknowledges and supports honesty, no matter the source." Marcus placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "I would like to offer you a new role," he said, voice calm but deliberate. "You will have access to meetings, input on processes, and the chance to contribute to strategic decisions. We value your insight. We value your voice." Jamal felt a flush of disbelief, his hands tightening at his sides. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything yet," Marcus replied with a slight smile. Just know that your actions today will have lasting impact, not only for this company but for the people around you. You've earned respect that cannot be taken away." Ava Schultz added softly, "And the investors, they're impressed. They'll remember who saved this deal." The room felt lighter now, brighter, as though the storm of tension had passed completely. Karen's sabotage had failed. Truth had triumphed. And the overlooked janitor was now recognized for his worth, skill, and courage. Jamal exhaled slowly, still holding his mop but standing taller than he had all day. For once, he was no longer invisible. Marcus looked at him with a quiet pride, one that could not be faked or forced. It was earned, pure, and lasting. Dr. Reinhardt extended his hand, first formally, then warmly. "To you, Mr. Rivers," he said, "for honesty, clarity, and bravery." Jamal shook it, a small, modest smile breaking across his face. It was the first time in years he felt truly seen, truly acknowledged, truly respected. Marcus addressed the room once more, voice firm. "Let today be a reminder. Talent, courage, and integrity exist in every corner of this company. Never underestimate the person you might overlook." Jamal returned to his mop, but the posture had changed. He walked taller, breathed easier, and for the first time, believed that he had a place not just in the company, but in a world that too often ignored him. And everyone watching, from investors to executives, knew one thing. A janitor had saved a $10.5 billion deal, exposed a saboteur, and reminded the world that courage and integrity are the most powerful forces in any room. The boardroom had emptied, investors and staff departing with renewed confidence. Jamal Rivers, once invisible, now stood near the window, sunlight catching the edges of his worn hoodie. Marcus Holt approached him, folder in hand, eyes warm but serious. "Jamal," Marcus began, "today wasn't just about saving a deal. It was about showing the world what courage and honesty look like." He placed the folder on the table. "Inside you'll find a formal offer, consulting privileges, access to strategic meetings, and the resources to contribute to decisions at every level. Your voice will matter here, officially." Jamal blinked, the weight of recognition finally settling in. I don't know what to say. I never imagined—" "You don't need to say anything," Marcus interrupted gently. "You already said everything that mattered. You acted when it counted most. That's rare. That's invaluable." From the doorway, a few remaining staffers peeked in, smiling. "Congratulations, Jamal," one whispered. "You earned it." But Marcus had one more surprise. He tapped the folder. "There's more. We've also established a small scholarship in your name for underprivileged youth who show exceptional talent and courage, just like you. You'll help guide it, mentor students, and ensure opportunity reaches those who might otherwise be overlooked." Jamal's chest tightened. His mind flashed to the kids in his old neighborhood, the friends who never had a chance, the young ones who worked harder than most adults. Tears pricked the corners of his eyes. "Marcus," he whispered, voice thick, "I never expected this. I'm just... me." Marcus smiled softly. "Exactly, and that's why it matters. Never doubt the impact one person can make." Dr. Reinhardt, who had lingered to witness the final moments, stepped forward. "Jamal, your actions have changed the course of business, leadership, and perception today. You have reminded all of us, wealth, power, and status do not determine truth or integrity." The sun streamed through the windows, warm and golden, illuminating the boardroom. Jamal looked around, taking in the empty chairs, the polished tables, the light glinting off the city skyline. For the first time, he felt seen, respected, valued, not just as a janitor, but as a human being with skill, insight, and courage. Marcus placed a hand lightly on Jamal's shoulder. "And one more thing," he said, eyes twinkling. "Your input will now be considered in all high-level investor meetings. No more sidelining. No more being invisible. You've earned a seat at the table, literally and figuratively." Jamal's lips parted in a small, genuine smile. He exhaled, feeling years of unnoticed effort and ignored potential finally acknowledged. I can't believe it," he murmured. "Believe it," Marcus replied. "You saved billions, exposed a fraud, and reminded everyone in this building that courage and honesty are the most powerful forces there are." Jamal stepped back, glancing out the window one more time. The city stretched endlessly, filled with possibilities he had never dared to imagine. Today marked a new beginning. He turned to Marcus. "Thank you for seeing me." Marcus shook his head. "No, Jamal. Thank you for speaking up, for being brave, for reminding us all of what truly matters." Jamal picked up his mop one last time, then set it down. Not as a tool of labor, but as a symbol of a past he had left behind. Today he stepped forward, recognized, respected, and ready to shape his own legacy. And outside the boardroom, the world had no idea that a janitor had just changed the course of a $10.5 billion deal, exposed deceit, and forever altered the lives of everyone who had underestimated him. Jamal walked out of the building, head high, chest proud, stepping into a future where his courage and honesty would always matter. If this story reminded you that the people we overlook often carry the truth we need most, hit like, subscribe, so you never miss the next story where quiet courage exposes lies, and those who underestimated the wrong person learn the lesson they never saw coming.